That's a bit fuzzy.
Yeah.
Test.
Doesn't sound very natural, but maybe we project. All right. Very distracting. All right, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Steve Safarowick. I am the head of marketing and product, and on behalf of Accelerate HK, I welcome you to our talk on design thinking. So, before we get started, before I introduce our speakers, I just wanted to know how many people came here today expecting a talk on design or graphic design. All right, great. So everyone is kind of aware of what design thinking is, so we don't have to go a little too far into that. So first and foremost, I'll introduce our panelists here. We have Liam Gilligan, who is the head of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia Innovation Centre, Hong Kong, and he's provided us this lovely space. So can we all just give Liam a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. We have Lena Chatlani over here, who is the she's a UX designer from Vector Ventures.
That's right.
Can we welcome Lena? We have Ibrahim Yusuf, who is a brand builder. He has his own agency at the moment. Your agency, I'll let you introduce it later.
Just my name.
Just his name.
Yeah.
And we have April Yu, who is the co-founder of Zwoop. We'll get a little bit more to that in a moment. But, all right, so design thinking is a very sort of innovative way of solving problems. And we're lucky enough to have a broad spectrum of speakers here from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, which is a little more on the corporate end, to obviously those of us who have our own agencies and everything in between. So my first question, should we close the door? Is, hi, welcome.
Sorry.
Out of the box thinking is, I think, something that we're all accustomed to hearing over the years, and we all hear employers and on job descriptions that we're seeking out of the box thinkers. And I would guess the converse of that is in the box thinker. I think that this is a great way to start and explain where design thinking comes into play. So Liam, could you just explain to us how here at the Innovation Lab you're sort of promoting design thinking?
Yeah,
And
sure.
a little bit more about what happens here.
Sure. So our lab is a place where we do a couple of things. So we run kind of rapid experiments or prototypes, minimal viable products, proof of concepts, whatever you want to call it, here to test whether an idea has value and whether it will kind of be something that will grow into something bigger, I guess, inside the bank. We also look to collaborate, I guess, with a lot of our larger corporate clients that we have. So think of like aviation companies or shipping companies or utility providers or other things like that who have unique problems that we kind of can bring a different perspective to and look to kind of collaborate or co-create in that sense. And then kind of the other thing that we try to do here is be a place of cultural change for the rest of the business. So kind of educate and inspire around changes in technology, concepts like design thinking and other things like that. But design thinking really is an embedded part of the innovation process for Commonwealth Bank. So it's kind of our starting point for everything. We've had about 9,000 people in the business trained in design thinking and have been kind of applying it for probably about 6 or 7 years now, I think. One of the probably earliest corporates in Australia to adopt it as a fundamental kind of approach. But yeah, so we really try to build cross-functional teams from across the organisation, come in and bring different perspectives, go out and actually get hands dirty and interview people, spend time with customers, and go through the kind of whole process that way. It's interesting getting people who've never done it before, bankers who've never done it before, to go out and talk to customers and things like that. It's very interesting.
Okay. And on the opposite end, Ibrahim, you are sort of completely opposite from sort of an establishment, and I don't know, not in a negative context, but you've started your own agency, and what does design thinking mean to you in your context and how you apply that to your clients?
I would say it's all about just recognizing how you're thinking at the first place. So a lot of times we get stuck in thinking in a normal sense, but recognizing what is a normal sense and trying to move past that and try to say like, okay, I recognize there are certain trends that I'm doing in my thinking right now. How can I supersede them and think in a different way? which is in another sense we could call it out-of-the-box thinking or design thinking, and it's just trying to establish certain methodologies or things that you can do, steps. I mean, just as an example, one of the steps that you can do is just maybe change the place that you're in to give yourself a different environmental stimulation. So it's recognizing certain patterns in your behavior and trying to evolve past them, and always constantly trying to like challenge yourself to think differently. It requires work. Design thinking requires constant kind of recognition and work on it. It's not something that you can be complacent in, can be safe. Complacency in essence is the enemy of creativity.
Good point, good
Yeah.
point. So I just one more thing, I want to keep this very interactive with the audience, and I have a quick question for you guys. How many people here know the difference between UI and UX? Like really well, like honestly. Can I ask you, what is the difference between UI and UX? If I could put you on the spot.
Sure. I mean, UI to me is more of a design interface type of things. UX is understanding who you're doing this for and why they're using it.
Okay, wonderful. Does everyone we agree with this? And well, why don't we hear it from a UX pro or so? What is the difference between UI UX and what are you doing at Vector?
Well, I'll answer the first question.
Is this
Is it on?
Think so.
Not. Is it? Hello?
Yeah.
Now it is. Okay. So the difference between UI and UX, I think it's something that's still strangely debated. I don't know why. I still think it's, especially in Hong Kong as well. I've seen that with employers and people introducing UX into their environment when it's a relatively new thing to them. To me, it's pretty clear that UI is pretty much user interface design. So it's everything visual that you map out based upon all the UX work that you've done before that. So it kind of tends to be on the final stages of your design. So they go hand in hand, but they're definitely not the same thing.
Okay.
I don't know if that explains it very well.
Okay. That's I think a good explanation. Wow, this is not as nice to me as it is to you. April. So April, actually, I know April quite well, and she is actually the instructor of our part-time product design and UX course. And April, I have this question always is burning inside of me. UX, is it a position that can stand alone on its own, or is it a subset of other positions?
Hello? Yeah. I think the question or the answer to this question depends on what kind of organization you're in. Like, for example, myself, I'm in a startup. And in the startup environment, you're really basically one-person team. What you need to do UX. You actually need to do UI design as well. You need to do product management as well. You're basically a one-man team that does everything. And sometimes you get confused because your role is so much overlapping and you're kind of doing everything. In the big organization, of course, there are many companies that have UX as an individual role. For example, Google has UX roles. For example, HSBC has UX roles. Cathay Pacific has UX roles. These people really understand the consumer, understand what they're looking for, understand their confusion, and then design the interaction and design the whole experience without doing anything about UX. So it really depends on where you are. And there are many things, there are many roles, many organizations that needs something between. It really depends on what they're looking for. Sometimes people think the job description has to have a very defined role, but actually they are really just putting a bunch of things they need you to do and put the title over it. So if you read through, you experience the interview, you get into an organization, you will find you will need some sort of set of skills that is sometimes UX, sometimes even product management, and sometimes UI that is over there. So I would say, yeah, it depends. Depends on what kind of company you're in.
Okay. Very interesting. So let's. Oh my God, I give up. Let's talk about the process of design thinking from a technical standpoint. And if you look and you try to look at the definition of what design thinking is, sometimes people apply a process to it. A lot of it ends in iteration and really customer-centric, and there's a few different methodologies if you're aware of Agile and Scrum. And why don't we talk about that? How many of you guys are using these methodologies in your day-to-day with your teams? And can we shine a little light on this for the audience who may not be familiar?
William, are you using Agile or Scrum or?
Yeah, we do. So we have a development team in Vietnam that's kind of a centre of excellence for us for our kind of what I'd call non-core products. So most of our kind of core banking kind of applications are all developed onshore in Australia, but we have a team in Vietnam that we kind of work closely with, and they're a kind of 7 or 8 full agile teams that we can kind of work with there. Which is interesting. So we, but even as a kind of onshore in Australia as a bank, we transitioned all of our kind of software stuff to Agile probably about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I think. It's very interesting seeing kind of a huge building, kind of 15, 16 floors of people just Scrum teams after Scrum team after Scrum team. It's a pretty amazing thing to kind of walk through and see. But it's it's a great way of actually shipping stuff quickly. Getting stuff in front of people quickly and testing quickly. So for us, it's kind of the second part, I guess, of our approach around getting customer-centric products into market fast. So that first part is all around kind of the creation, kind of customer-centric creation through design thinking, and then integrating to agile delivery and get stuff out quickly.
Okay.
Ibrahim, you are currently a one-man band. Yes?
That's true. Yep.
It's a very admirable thing. What sort of processes are you using in this context of a one-man show, if I can respectfully say so?
So for myself, well, I don't know what Agile and Scrum. It would be
Okay,
interesting
that's a
to know
good
what
point.
that means. Like,
That's
for this vernacular is lost upon me. So maybe
Okay.
you could explain that. To me.
April is actually an agile. As a product manager, you're very familiar. Could you just give our audience a brief introduction to Agile and Scrum?
I'm not going to use this much anymore. I quit.
Your voice is good. Your voice is good.
Thank you.
Well, I would say the practices and the terminologies is less important than what it's trying to achieve. Agile is a way to develop a product or a service in a much simpler way. You get a smaller set of the product that satisfy or is able to solve a customer problem, or is able to give value to the customer, or give the value to the context or the targeted user is trying to you're trying to serve. And you bring the product to the market, you test with a real user, you get a real feedback, you figure out what really is not working right or is designed right in your product or services, and you iterate based on the real feedback. That's what the very essence of Agile. I think terminology-wise is less important.
Yeah.
It's what it's trying to achieve compared to the old waterfall model that is more important.
Okay.
So that's my definition of Agile.
I just have a question. I actually spoke with April about this before. We hang out a lot. We talk. I think there's one thing that it was either you or Gordon had said to me, which is Agile is actually quite simple at its core. But right now, a lot of people have tried to capitalize on making it something very complicated, selling certifications and courses, and I feel like this is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. And there might be a lot of people here in the audience that
I did quit. Gave up on trying to pursue Agile or Scrum because you might have thought it was quite intimidating. So is it really this simple? It's just this iterative process that somebody can pursue at its very core. Is this something that somebody can just apply tomorrow, or they need training? You pass this one to me, I'll get it prepped for you.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. No worries.
Well, I speak from my experience. I've built my own startup. I've worked in Lianhua for a year, built its own startup, and now I'm on my third startup. I've done different versions of Agile. Sometimes it's a week of sprint, sometimes it's 2 weeks of sprint, sometimes it's 3 weeks of sprint. I've done stand up at 9, stand up at 3, stand up at 6. I've done 2 stand up within a day because there are offshore teams over there. I've done spring retrospective. Sometimes we don't do spring retrospective. Sometimes the spring planning is playing scorecards. Sometimes we do teacher citing. Sometimes do estimated hours. So I have different flavors of this Agile and Spring all over. But it works as long as the objective you're trying to achieve is not changing. You're trying to get the minimum set of features that is enough valuable to your end users to test in front of them. This is what you're trying to achieve. As long as you focus on that, that's the thing. So I also actually I want to ask the audience that how many of you know Agile or you're practicing Agile in your own company? Raise your hand. Cool. Can I ask some of you what is your definition of Agile? Like what do you think it is?
That's good.
And just this is perfect here that we can kind of round this discussion off. Lena, I think, are we all familiar with the term imposter syndrome? Do we know? Does anyone feel like an imposter? Who doesn't belong here? What, I've already asked you, but so imposter syndrome is the sort of notion that you get a job and you're worried on your first day that you don't know what to do. So I feel like this is something that keeps people from pursuing a lot of things that they want to try. And Lena, I'm not saying you're an imposter by any means.
This is a perfect question.
Well, we don't know for sure, right?
Yes, Robert.
Actually, I don't think it's just on the first day. I know some CEOs who have imposter syndrome.
I think everyone deep down suffers from this, but Lena, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Lena actually has a very interesting arc. You were a photographer, and then you took the user experience immersive course at General Assembly, and so you sort of changed your career. What did you learn before and after, and just tell us about who you were before and who you are now. And you're not an imposter, I swear.
My life story.
Yeah.
So I was a photographer for about 6-7 years. At university, I actually studied computer science. So in some ways, you would assume that I had a good foundation for UX, but actually I didn't. I do feel like UX is one of those careers where you kind of have to have the right personality for it. So I was a portrait photographer. I worked with people every day, all the time. Different types of people with different requirements, different needs. So there's definitely a huge overlap for me. Really understanding what it is that makes someone comfortable in front of the camera is not that different from trying to understand how a user might be suffering from a particular product that's out there and that needs to be fixed. And I guess like the big word there is empathy, and that's where I think the overlap is. In terms of imposter syndrome, I mean I feel that all the time. Not every day, but quite often. And again, UX is one of those fields, especially in Hong Kong, where some professionals feel like they're still finding their feet, and you can study it, but it's still being defined. I think you will see jobs advertised for UX developer, UX designer, UI designer, and visual designer, and sometimes all of those descriptions come into one field, one job role. So yeah, I think everyone, I would say to some degree, still is trying to define what it is we're trying to do as UX designers. But anyway, that's just my take.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Is being a UX designer like having an identity crisis? That's what it sounds.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So sorry.
No, so I want to open this next question up to everyone. I think we've covered a lot of good points at the moment. How many people here, by a show of hands, once again, I'm so sorry for making you work, but how many people feel sort of like constricted by the place they're currently working, like the rules are too tight and there's not enough freedom for change and new ideas? Just one. In Hong Kong, wow.
Because the traditional company which gonna allows you a very tight instruction you're gonna follow.
I'm sorry, can you just, well,
Sorry, I just explain about the traditional company. You have got many structure. You're gonna have many instruction to follow.
Yeah.
On top of a management team, and they will arrange the job duties to you in order to finish it on time. Yeah,
Okay.
vice versa.
Okay, got it. So maybe some other people are a little bit shy, or they don't want to show their cards, but I think particularly Hong Kong has a reputation for this as well, as having a very old school traditional system. And I think a lot of us welcome creative thinkers. I think on one end of the spectrum, product managers and UX, we could be heroes of sorts. But another aspect is people that come in and shake things up too much. You come in with a new way of thinking, and you might sort of scare your colleagues or bosses away, and this person's crazy. I'll open this up. What's the difference here? Have you guys experienced these people that have come in and just been too radical?
Well, I think it comes from a difference of cultures, really.
Mhm.
Like, it would be a little bit unfair to kind of like point the finger solely at Hong Kong and blame like why isn't Hong Kong that
I didn't
creative?
even just Hong Kong, but yeah.
Yeah, but in general, I think it's just we're looking at a difference in cultures over here in terms of Western culture to a large extent is based on individualism.
Yeah.
And individualism encourages free thinking as you as a human being by yourself, which is kind of a way you can kind of make a leap that's creative thinking. Over here, it's more of a collective culture. It's thinking together, thinking in a group, and it's about at the same time you don't want to lose face. You want to make sure that everybody's looking. There's a harmony. So it's in a way, I think culturally, it's not as conducive to fostering creative thinking that you and I know of from the Western sense. So I think it's, I mean, one of the challenges that I found over here, I've been here for 2.5 years, is trying to maybe understand how can we instill creative thinking in a cultural and a local sense, because this is how they operate at the end of the day.
A very good point.
Liam, I actually wanted to ask you this as well. I think sometimes some people identify as a startup person or sort of like a more stable corporate person. And here, I mean, is this sort of innovation center a way to show that you guys are welcome to people who want to come with new ideas and they don't have to be afraid? I actually went for an interview at HSBC, and even in the interview they were like, things, you'll never get anything done here. You have to climb too many hurdles and such. How do you welcome people with radical ideas here in such an environment?
So I mean, if you across our kind of broader innovation team, probably half the team are ex-startup people. So I think a lot of them bring that energy to how they approach kind of work and problem solving. But I think importantly, a lot of them bring the empathy that it comes from being on that side of the fence and knowing that it's probably the hardest thing for a startup in dealing with banks is the generally long sales cycle that it takes.
Yeah.
Like, it could take 2 years to actually close a deal with a bank traditionally. So I think because we bring all that experience from the startup side, understanding that kind of time is critical and you either need to make decisions very, very quickly, whether there's something we can do or not. But we're effectively trying to be, a very easy in-ramp to what can be a relatively complex organisation. So how do we be a quick on-ramp to if you have a good idea and we can validate something quite quickly, then let's go for it. That's kind of how we try to do it. So it's pretty rare that we think something's too crazy. Usually something's too boring and we're like, seen it before. Not, we because we have that interest in all of the industries that we bank as well as just banking. I'm keen to see what people do with drones, and keen to see what people do with IoT, keen to see what people do with anything. Open doors.
Oh, wonderful. It's a breath of fresh air. April, you have, welcome. You have been in all sort of aspects of, you founded your own company, you've been a consultant, and you've also worked as an employee. So these are 3 very different roles, and how has design thinking, creativity, and sort of just dealing with stakeholders differed on the spectrum?
I think this one work actually is good.
Perhaps.
Actually, I'm a little bit more than that. My background is accounting. I'm a certified accountant. I have a PhD in management accounting.
Wow.
I'm mainland Chinese, and I've never been outside Hong Kong and anywhere farther. I've never been to the US, I've never been to the UK, I've never been overseas educated. I've been a little bit more than that. Yes, realize this, right? I've also been a co-founder. I've also raised $25 million for my company. Pretty much. Actually, before, I don't know why you guys are here. I think you're generally curious about design thinking, but you do come with a question, right? There is a why question in everybody's head, and you're trying to get an answer tonight. I hope that our answer has helped you sort of answer the why question. So for myself, I think, well, at least for me, I think design thinking is not about UX or UI. It's probably actually even more, because everything can be designed to be better, to be more optimized. What I'm trying to do, even for my startup, before I was in Enquaver, was really to design everything. You design conversation, you design a meeting, you design a product, you design a poster, you design a conversation with your boss where you're trying to ask for a salary raise. Everything can be designed. The principle is pretty much the same. You understand the need, you understand the frustration, you understand why they're pushing back, you understand why time is not right, you understand how you can iterate based on their feedbacks, right? The principle is exactly the same. UX is just a way of manifesting itself, but design thinking is everywhere. That's pretty much my take of it. And in terms of the roles, yeah, startup require more of a one-man band. You really need to do all the way through ideation to the way of interviewing the users, all the way to understanding the users, taking out of your bias, which can be really, really difficult because you're literally looking at what you have designed and you're crushing it. The next iteration is going to be not something that you have originally thought that should be the optimal situation. Startup more, well, you have to be more agile, more dynamically adding value to your team, because you're facing, well, if you're in a giant company, very much your colleagues is going to be all UX or all designer. You're very comfortable in your zone. In a startup, you deal with top management, you deal with investors, you deal with operational team, you deal with developers. They all come from different perspectives, and they're trying to put fingers on whatever you're trying to do and say something that they think is right. So not only you have to understand where they're coming from, you have to understand how you can design your way of communication to convince them, or not to convince them, but take whatever they say. In a bigger company, when I was in Enquaver, you less have to face a diverse team. You're very much working with UX and the UI people and the BA software company, but you are still needing to design the way of your smaller team, how they work. The Enquaver is a particular example, is a Hong Kong local company. It's a lot of politics going around. People are very, very traditional thinking. They don't want to change the way they work. It is the way it works, right? That's what they say. But at the other end of it, when you go through your sales team, when you go through the marketing team, they're only all about making money, or more making money. They say, why you can't do this? The product team say, no, we can't do this, but this make more money, this make more advertising money. And we will say, yes, it make more advertising money, but then you screw up the user experience because it's not in the correct place that you're trying to be. You have a different set of challenges. Well, these kind of challenges of convincing the conflicts or the never-ending question in between of the sales objective and the user experience objective is less in a startup, because you are more focusing on what the user is trying to do, especially in the startup that currently I am in, where the product is still in the making. It's much more easy to align. So different kind of company face different challenges. Nevertheless, you can always design the way you communicate, design the way you think and approach the problem, so you get a more optimal result. So that's my takeaway.
Wow, that was a fantastic answer.
It's a long answer.
Hey, can we apply it? Oh, yeah. Very good. There's no way I was cutting that one off.
Design everything.
I hope you guys were listening.
No, that was brilliant.
But April, I think you bring up a very good point that everyone can answer in a different way, given everyone's background, which is stakeholder management. Your stakeholders are your clients and their customers, and Lena, you have stakeholders as well. I mean, you're employed by a firm, you have bosses, you have probably very many stakeholders involved. Can we just briefly talk about that and how you guys sort of, like April said, it's a lot of it is some people have different wants and needs, and convincing people that, hey, maybe you're just not thinking. Huh?
I hope it's not embarrassing.
No.
You're talking about your stakeholder. It's not about your boss, right?
Yeah, are there any bosses of these people in the audience? First and foremost.
Excuse yourself if you're the boss of
I
it.
think there's one, but seems pretty cool. Okay, so Lena, we'll let you take this away.
So interestingly, just a little bit of background. I work for a VC. They invest in early stage tech startups. So my stakeholders aren't actually necessarily my bosses, they are actually founders of portfolio companies, and these vary widely, from e-commerce companies to consumer apps to IoT devices. And the challenge, I think, I would say for myself is the product or the problem usually varies in scope a lot, and that has a lot to do with budget. And I think that that's the general case with everyone. Where it gets tricky is if the requirements are not defined. I think that's where you run into, especially at the beginning, you run into problems with stakeholders, or there are things like scope creep where you start getting requests for more things, or there's lack of clarity because there was lack of communication in the first place. Often this also loops back to the fact that the problem was not clearly defined. And I think identifying the problem might seem like it sounds like a very simple thing, but it requires quite a lot of work, and as April mentioned, and actually as everyone has mentioned, it's about kind of taking your bias away and really trying to look at the consumer's perspective as well as your stakeholders' perspective and what their end goal is.
So is everyone familiar with the terms that were just used, scope creep and requirements, and does anyone have any questions about these things, industry terms sometimes? No. All right, wonderful. We're all doing a very good job of enlightening this crowd as we go. But Ibrahim, you as a one-man band, you're coming in, you're convincing people, whether it's based on the previous things you've done or just selling yourself. You brand yourself. If you go to Ibrahim's LinkedIn or his website, I Build Brands is the first thing you see.
Yeah.
You yourself are a brand.
Yeah.
So how are you, using yourself, your brand, and convincing these companies all around the world that they should trust you with everything?
Well, it came from the point, like, I'll just mention this one thing. As designers, we say less is more. We preach that a lot to clients and consumers, and saying that with a little bit of quality you can achieve a lot, as opposed to quality over quantity. So I've been saying that a lot in the industry for the past 17 years, and I think, why don't I actually live it? So I mean, one little fact about myself that you may not know, that I only wear black and white, for example. So I wear black during the night and I wear white during the day. It's a true story. Ask me after the talk and I'll show you the picture of my closet, for those who don't believe. But it's coming from the point of really trying to distill and focus in my life in terms of what is really important. So if you look at people like or Steve Jobs, right, or Zuckerberg, there's a reason why they wear the same outfit every day, right? Because they just focus on what's important. Don't get me wrong, I love and appreciate fashion very much. In fact, before I used to wear black and white, I was wearing colors all the time. But what is important for me right now is building other people's brands, and that is my sole focus. So in terms of my own brand, right, my own brand is just this. It's black, it's white, it's the exact same outfit in white I have, except that the chains are wooden ones, so different color, right? But I just focus on what's important. That's kind of the message that I want to convey to anybody that I work with, that my entire focus will be on building your brand, and that's what's important to me.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
By the way, if any of you guys have questions for each other, completely cool with that. You all are coming from different backgrounds. Yeah, that's very, very. And what is the importance? Do you recommend that everyone sort of, brand themselves? What's the importance of a self-brand?
I mean, you can. Well, the only reason I suggested it, because I was aware of this, and I thought about it, I designed things, that's why I really kind of related to what you were saying earlier, in terms of like, you can design everything, and I really believe that, right? Designing is a frame of mind, right? It's thinking objectively, is like, how can I solve this situation, or how can I enhance this situation using critical thinking? Right, and once I was aware of that, okay, so I applied it to my outfit. In terms of like other people designing their own brand, I mean, sure, if that's your thing, it's about thinking objectively of like what you want to do. So for some people, it's really important to self-express every day, if we're talking about outfits. So most people, the way they get dressed in the morning is based on their mood. So they go in front of their closet and they think like, how do I feel today? Am I feeling kind of blue? Am I feeling kind of happy? And then you would choose your attire based on that. I decided for me that the attire choice, for example, if we're talking about designing myself as a brand, that it wouldn't be affected by mood. Myself should supersede my mood, right? Of course I have shitty days and I have good days, right? But that shouldn't affect who I am and what my focus is. So maybe take that thinking for yourself, and if you wanted to design your own brand, I think it's healthy to think of yourself as a brand in terms of it helps you focus. It doesn't necessarily have to be clothing or attire, right? It could be how you think, how you present yourself, a little signature thing that you do every day, certain words that you use.
Like what?
Like that.
Like what?
Like the
The
like that.
like that. It's really, and this is why I think like what April said is really important. It's you can design everything. Really, the potentials are endless.
Good.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah, sorry.
You have your own, yeah.
Hi, here. I can't design the battery level. Hi.
Yeah,
Another
switch,
one.
let's switch.
Hello? Yeah, sure. What I want to add, you already have a brand,
Yeah.
actually. As of the day, none of us are babies, right? Anybody infant, please raise your hand. No, right? Good. It's good. It's always to have. It's always good to have this mindset that there is something else or something more that can be done to yourself. What I want to say on top of what you say is we already have a brand, and we are constantly iterating our brand as well. It's like everything you do. You design software, you may be doing a chair, you may be building a house, trying to create a family or something. You're constantly trying to change a little bit of the brand you are already having because you believe there are things that are objectives you want to do. There is a why question you're trying to answer. And there are things you do, you test around the people, you test on the job market as well, you test with your friend, you test your clothes to make it better. So you already have a brand, and there's always something that can be done to yourself. Actually, all these things, and even if you apply the UX principles, you apply job methodology, they're fundamentally similar. It's just the way we look at it, or even the use case that we apply to it.
Okay, that's a very good point. So I don't want to put anyone on the spot by any means, but I want everyone to leave. So I think it's very important in terms of content in general that everyone leaves here having learned something actionable that they can do. And I kind of just want to, like, for the first time, go down the line. And on the topic of branding, because I think we all have experience in branding, what is the first actionable tip that somebody can leave here, whether it's tonight, this event, networking, or tomorrow when they wake up, the first actionable thing they can do to increase or enhance their personal brand?
I think you have to know your customer, who you're actually trying to sell to, because that kind of really influences, I guess, the tone you're trying to set. So me, I really don't pay any attention to fashion. You can probably tell. I just pick up whatever's on top and just put it on. But I think with everything, whether it's kind of personal brand, kind of company brand, product brand, anything like that, I think you just need to think of who are your actual, who you're targeting, and what's the kind of tone of voice you want to go with. Is it playful, cheeky? Is it serious, professional? What is the kind of thing you're trying to do? I don't know. I think that's where I start usually.
Okay.
Well, I think the brand is really, you have to have a purpose before you have a brand. And you have to be consistent with your purpose. Then you build your brand. I mean, I don't agree that everybody has a brand. A lot of people, I mean, maybe Trump has a brand, but his brand is like a kid, right? He's very consistent in being.
We don't speak about him.
Well, sorry.
I'm American, I'm sorry.
So, so unless you're pretty clear what your personal purpose is, then you can build your own personal brand. And for other companies out there, I don't know if you agree that if they're not clear on what they're trying to do, or have a purpose of what their company stands for, it's difficult for them to build a brand. It's not just a pretty logo, or anything like that.
Okay, that's a good point. So what you're saying is the question is not it's defining. You're saying not everybody has to have a brand, or otherwise it's more important to first define what you want your brand to be before you sort of take actionable steps to enhance that. So I think you started off by saying not everyone has a brand.
like Uber, right?
Yeah.
Uber is a ride-hailing, company.
Well, I don't mean everybody as companies. I mean as individuals. We all.
Are we talking about individuals or companies?
Well, I think it could be either way. As individuals, I think we have our own brand, and this is up for discussion. Maybe I didn't make that clear. Liam, I think he looked at his shoes first, saying that he doesn't really have a brand, but I think there's a certain way we all sell ourselves.
Fashion-oriented brand. Yeah.
So I think like Nike, they always talk about how they can enhance an athlete's performance,
Mhm.
right? Things like that. So they have their purpose, or maybe Apple think different.
Yeah.
Or whether it's those kind of stuff. They always want to. Yeah, it's something that it's not hard stuff. I mean, it's like very soft stuff. That
Okay.
you know, and they're consistent in doing that.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing a laptop or or a service.
Okay.
So
It's a very good point. Yeah, app makes it very clear. And
And I want to address that question.
Hi.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
Give me a second.
You're next.
I agree. I really love visiting the Wan Chai Exhibition Center, which is usually how all kinds of exhibition about electronics, toys, homeware stuff. There are thousands of companies, and they all make the same stuff. Every time I go there, I'm amazed by how similar the stuff is. I think in a way, that is reflecting what you just said. The difference between us when we have the difference between branding is what does it mean by branding? You're saying brand has to have a purpose. I agree. The loud brand have a purpose. They constantly, not only that they have a purpose, they're constantly telling you in front of your face what their purpose is. They're doing consistent things to reflect their purpose. That's why you think they have a brand. What I mean by brand is actually everybody have one, but what's your strategy of the brand? What's the purpose? How you come out of the purpose? What's your why question? Your why question may as well be just for everybody. Well, my why question is just to be happy. And then your brand is like a southern company that's over there in the Wan Chai Exhibition Center. But still, there is a brand, right? To a certain extent. It's just that why question is different. But at the end, I would say yes, of course. The louder ones, the more consistent ones, the more differentiated ones will of course trump from all the competitors. Not that Trump.
Okay.
It's a good point. I think there was a misalignment. I meant personal brands as we were on Ibrahim. We were talking about personal brands, and then also as intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs, the brand you work for. But there was a big confusion. But good save, April. Thank you very much.
Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, I agree you both totally about, especially about for companies branding. But for individual, I think it can be the other way around. So I was like, for myself, I was once really frustrated about my career and stuff because everyone got a dream and they've got purpose, and of course they've got their own branding and they know what they're going to do. But for me, I got stuck in a stage where I don't know where to go, and I feel so frustrated because everyone's talking about chasing the dream and all this stuff. So I think brand actually for individual, sometimes it comes after you understand what your ability is. So for example, if you're creative and you don't want to be a designer in the first place, but after a while and then you starting to realize that you're probably good at that job, and then you are actually interested in doing this. So I think for company, yes, I totally agree about it. But sometimes individuals, for me, I encountered this period and it was really frustrating myself. And I think, oh, this world is going to end. What I'm going to do is try to go for a job and just earn myself a bit of money and then go back home and watch TV. And yeah, so it's kind of it's kind of hard time for me.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you're in a better place now.
Yeah.
Okay. You seem like you're in a good mood, and I really appreciate it. Very jovial. It's fantastic.
15 minutes. Think of a story that you really relate to. Tell it to yourself, tell it to the camera, right? Then afterwards, look at the videotape and keep track of certain reoccurrence in words that you say. You'll notice a pattern that you start to latch on to specific words. And if we can say as brands that we are the sum of what we speak or the words that we use, you can kind of change that if you're aware of the words that you use itself. So you can use, like, over here there's words that says innovation is our DNA. Innovation is a strong word. Maybe you would like to use that a little bit more. So after this exercise, you'll notice that you're using certain words as clutches, and you're kind of relying them a little bit more, a little bit too often. And maybe they're not as powerful as you think they should, or words that you would like to use, per se. So you can kind of make a list of words that you would like to use. And I try to always do that, even with myself, because we are what we say, essentially.
Okay. Nice one. Lena, I do have the perfect question to set you up here, I swear.
Okay.
I think we'll move beyond branding, if it's okay.
That's fine.
So, on the sort of topic of actionable things that we could do tomorrow, if a lot of people here are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, I would just like to ask you guys, starting with Lena, what can we do, whether or not we're in a situation where we want to change, we want to sort of be these product manager heroes, we want to help inspire creativity and design thinking in a company we work for, or we have an idea burning inside us and we want to get started and use the process of design thinking to ideate, to create. What would you recommend that people do in all realms, entrepreneur?
So if they want to, I'm assuming what you're asking is if they want to make a change.
Would you ever just say, okay, quit your job and start applying for a job as a product manager, a UX designer? What things can people do to sort of prep for this open-ended, creative, heroic position?
I don't know if it's heroic necessarily, but what I would say is, if we loop back to this process of design thinking, you can apply that to your career. So you can go back and look at your whole life as a product, per se, your career life, your professional life rather, and you can look at, potential mistakes you've made or potential paths that you've taken that haven't worked, understand why they haven't worked for you, and you're the perfect person to do that because you understand yourself the most. And that's how you start the process of iteration. Start identifying what it was that made you happy in your career. Make a list of those things. Try and see if you can identify then, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a career in design, right? You might find that from going back and from understanding all the problems that you might have faced in the past, that it might be a different trajectory that you want to take. And by doing that, you can then find, okay, maybe there's a certain career path there for me. And that's just the whole process of iteration. I think that's how it can work. For more like solid, practical advice about making a change into a design role, if that's something you think you want to do, I would just suggest doing a lot of reading.
Doing a lot of reading.
And talking to people, talking to designers as well.
Well, okay, so you when you graduated your class, you were first a freelancer, and then you now have a full-time job. How was that transition after the class? Did you feel like you took away tools that you wouldn't have had before, or you were doing things that you couldn't have done unless you had actually learned with a mentor or somebody teaching you?
I definitely think it helped to take the course, for sure. Mainly because you have to be able to learn, I feel you have to be able to learn the processes in order to then go through this process of design thinking. You have to learn how to ideate, you have to learn how to do your research, you have to learn, okay, I've talked about empathizing, but you have to learn how to do that. And there are certain steps, and I think it just creates structure. So it creates structure to your thinking, and it allows you to be able to make decisions and come to a conclusion. So it gives you almost like some kind of box to work inside of, rather than just going here, there, and everywhere. So I would recommend definitely learning design thinking.
Okay, got it. Liam, I think it's
Can I add one
please,
thing?
yes, of course.
So I have something very, very real and tangible that you can do tomorrow. So tonight we're launching a FinTech Association in Hong Kong, and one of the parts or components, committees, we're going to call it, of that is actually on customer experience and design. If you're happy with your current banking experience in Hong Kong, don't worry about joining. But if you think it stinks, I encourage you to join and do something about it. I think there's a call to arms for anyone interested or excited about design thinking or customer experience to actually help transform banking in Hong Kong. But yeah, it'd be
I'd
awesome.
be down for that.
Yeah,
I'd be
everyone
down for
should be.
that. Yeah.
Very actionable, guys. We're coming to the point where I think we need to call it for Q&A. I know we have a lot of hungry hands in the audience as I look out there.